It's a little bit of delay. It'll go red in the top left for me.
Live. Good afternoon, everyone. This Scrutiny Committee meeting is being live streamed on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders. The Council's standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the Council. And if you can please keep your cameras on while we conduct the meeting, that would be really helpful. Thank you very much. Okay. We had apologies from?
We've had apologies from Councillors Marshall and Watkins, Chair, and from my family and from Councillor Deb Davis, who's the Cabinet Member for Education and Early Years.
Okay, thank you. And I think we haven't got Councillor Lacey online just yet.
I think she'll be joining as soon as you can, Chair.
Right, okay, that's great. Before we get going, does anybody have any declarations of interest? Councillor Davis?
Yeah, my daughter's a social worker.
As minutes of the meeting from last week, everybody happy with the minutes? No issues to raise? Okay. We have an approval. Somebody to second that? Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Okay, item 4 on the agenda, we have the Director of Social Services annual report. If I can hand over now to yourself, Tanya.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So afternoon, everybody. So just like to present to you this afternoon the annual Director's Report for 24-25. So this is a statutory requirement that is required of the Director of Social Services within Wales. And just to highlight to members that the format for this year's report has slightly changed as a result of new guidance that Welsh Government have issued. So it may not look quite the same as previous reports that committee has had in the past. But just to go very briefly outline the content of the report, and then happy to take any questions that members may have. So you'll see within the report that there's an overarching summary. It talks about the leadership within social services, a bit about the workforce. There's a section in there around the funding and the budget position at the end of 24-25, and then it goes into 4 specific areas or 4 specific sections. There's a section about people, there's a section about prevention, and there's a section on partnerships, and then finally a section on well-being. And those are the defined areas that Welsh Government had requested that we use for future formats for this report. So within each of those 4 sections, you'll see some data which is specific to that particular section, followed by what has gone well within the department during 24-25, what we believe could still be improved within the department, and then finally what difference we have made. So each of those 4 sections follow that format. And then following those 4 sections, we go on to then say what we plan to achieve, so our areas for improvement during the year 25-26. So you can expect to see in next year's report updates on progress on what we're calling our promises to the people of Newport about how we can improve our social services for them. And then at the end of the report, there are quite a number of different links which will take you into the various inspection reports that we've had over the year of 24-25. We had a number of inspections primarily our fostering service was inspected, our youth offending service, our youth service was inspected, and the most recent inspection from the CIW was of our adult social services. So as you can see, we had a lot of regulatory activity during 24-25, and the links to those very detailed inspection reports are at the end of this one. So, Chair, I don't plan to say any more than that. I've no doubt that members will have read the report, and very happy to take questions.
Thank you, Tanya. Okay, over to you, councillors. Would anybody like to start with the first question? Councillor Davis. Sorry, Councillor. I'll bring in Councillor Harvey first because she has to go.
I got 3 questions, Chair, if I can just throw them in quick before I leave.
Yeah, please do.
First one is, how are we ensuring that the staff are supported and the demand for services continues to rise? The second, do you want all 3 together?
Yeah.
The second one is, what's the plan to make the transition from Wickes to Mosaic as smooth as possible? And lastly, are we seeing real impact from our preventative services in easing pressure on statutory care? Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. Just making a note of those 3 questions. So thank you very much for those. So with the first one about how we're ensuring staff are supported with the increase in demand, and you're quite right to point out that increase in demand, and just to say that demand increases has continued into this financial year. I'm absolute advocate for ensuring that the well-being of our staff is absolutely paramount, because without our workforce we have no service, and so we make every effort to make sure our staff are supported. And within the report it does say a little bit about some of the things that we do. So for example, we have regular briefings with the staff, so keep them up to date with the developments and the achievements that are happening within the Social Services Directorate, but also more broadly across the council. We have regular meetings with the managers within all of the service areas, prevention, inclusion, adults and children, to make sure that we keep on top of our business and to make sure that we are doing what we can to support the staff on the ground. So, but from an individual staff member's point of view, every staff member will receive what we call one-to-one supervision. So they have a monthly meeting with their line manager where they are able to discuss their workload, their development, their professional development, but also to discuss any pressures that they may be managing. So that's something that happens on a one-to-one basis. But on a team basis, they also have regular team meetings where they're able to support one another. And I don't think we can underestimate the informal day-to-day support that the teams provide to each other, both within teams, but also across teams as well. One of the things that we've developed this year, and I'll talk more about it in next year's report, is we've developed a workforce action plan. So that plan looks at 3 different things. It looks at how we can recruit the right skilled, knowledgeable staff that we need to run the service, how we can retain those staff once they're recruited, but also how we can focus on maintaining the well-being of staff. And one of the things we're going to be doing in the autumn now is a survey of our staff, just to get their voices heard, and for them to give us some direct feedback about how well supported they feel, but also asking for their views on how we can improve the service, not just service delivery to the people that we serve, but also how we can improve things for them as a staff group. So there's a lot of activity, you know, because, as I say, they are our greatest asset, and without them we would not be able to do and support the people of Newport. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you. The second, Natalie, sorry, did you? Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I did put it in the chat, but it was just to add that we do offer clinical supervision to staff. So just kind of mindful of the challenging situations that our staff have to face day in and day out. In addition to supervision with their team managers, we do, when there are particularly challenging cases, offer clinical supervision as well, and also we access the psychology service to support staff as well to kind of manage the complex cases that we're seeing day in and day out.
Yeah, because they are complex, and the last thing you want is all the staff being burned out.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that. So your second question then about the plan to move from WCCIS to Mosaic. So this is the information system that we have, and we hold for all of the client records. So any person that is receiving a service from social services has a client record created where we keep all of their assessments and care plans, and we make all of our case notes. So an absolutely key important system for us. So you're absolutely right that the current system, which is called WCCIS, is not from next year is not going to be fit for purpose. So we are moving to a new system called Mosaic. I can tell you that system has been procured. So there is a huge amount of activity that is going on in this space, because it's not just Newport that are having to move onto this new client database, it's the whole of Wales. So there is a national group that I sit on as director, because we're trying to have a coordinated approach across Wales as far as possible in relation to the rollout of this new system, and try and do things not 22 times. So, you know, trying to make some efficiencies there. So I said that national group meets every 2 months. We also have a regional group, and we're working very closely together in the Gwent region. And in fact, what we did is we procured the new Mosaic system as a region, and Newport led on the procurement of that. So that procurement has occurred, and we've awarded the contract to Advanced, which is the company that has Mosaic. So we have a monthly meeting of directors and our data specialists and our IT specialists from SRS to ensure that we can move smoothly from one system to another. And on top of that, we have a Newport specific meeting, again, which I chair, to make sure that we have the right Newport representation, both in that regional and national space, to make sure that the staff are trained at the right time, that the staff are involved in the development of this new system to make sure that it works for them. And also to make sure that the data is transferred easily from the one system to another. It is a very complex piece of work with many people involved, but what I can hopefully reassure you of is that from what I've seen, we have excellent expertise, both within the region and within Newport, because we still have officers who are working for Newport who were around when we moved into the WCCIS system. So they've been through this process once before. So we do have, you know, a very good level of knowledge and understanding of what is needed to get us from one system onto the other. So we still have a way to go, but all of the building blocks are in place, and there is really very tight governance around this move, as you would expect, because this is highly confidential information that we're transferring from one system to another.
Can I just ask what the timeline is for this whole project? Yeah,
so we are expecting, there are lots of steps to get to where we need to be, but we're expecting to be on the new system by October next year. Those timelines have shifted a bit. It was earlier in the year, but there's various technical reasons that timeline has shifted to October.
Okay, I think then, councillors, as we ought to be hearing back on progress on this as it goes along.
In fairness, you don't know what you don't know what you don't know, and that's a given. But are there safety mechanisms in place in case this is either delayed, or because there's a lot of GDPR involved with it? So it's just to make sure that everything is, I'm not going to teach you how to suck eggs, but you know what I mean, as long as there's a safety net there in case, worst case scenario.
Yeah, so we have our data officers, Newport data officers, on the regional groups and on the Newport groups to make sure that we are compliant with all GDPR requirements, and that we protect this data as we are expected to do. So, you know, I can give you that assurance that the right people are around the table, and if there are any risks that emerge, that we will do what we can to mitigate against those risks. And obviously, if a situation arises that is, you know, that we feel we need to escalate that upwards, we certainly will.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay. And then third question, I think, was, what can we see the real impact that the prevention and inclusion service is having on reducing the demand on statutory services?
Yeah, so it's easing the pressure on statutory care, because care is massive, absolutely enormous. Yeah, and I know the staff are snowed under with it.
Yeah, so when you talk about statutory care, you're talking about children coming into care, Councillor Harvey, or are you talking about just generally adults or children receiving a statutory service?
Both.
Both, okay. So I think it's fair to say, and I'll let Nat come in a second, that despite, if we didn't have our prevention and inclusion service, I think we would see even greater demand for services than we are seeing. The heads of service, children's and adults, are doing a particular piece of work at the moment around the demand in services, the landscape over the last 5 years. And what we're seeing, the early stages of that, is that the demand just continues to increase year on year. So there is very close working between the prevention and inclusion team and the statutory teams. Is it slowing down demand? I would say probably not. But would there be greater demand if we didn't have that service? I would say absolutely yes, because there's no doubt that the prevention and early intervention service, they do meet demand, a lower level of demand, and do stop certain needs from escalating. Nat, I don't know if you want to come in further on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point just in terms of some of the data. So, for example, the number of referrals has gone up to statutory services, certainly in children's, at least 1,000 referrals per month, so per year. So in 22-23, we were looking at 12,405, 23-24. Sorry, 23-24, we're looking at 13,170. The number of assessments, so in 23-24 we were 4,719, and then in 24-25 5,916 assessments were completed. But when you look at the number of care and support plans that Newport has in comparison to other local authorities, we are significantly lower. So when you look at that data, that would suggest that we've got quite a good prevention and inclusion offer. So what we're able to do is screen out some of the referrals that are made to statutory services and ensure that needs are met within the community, opposed to being met by statutory services where we're trying to prioritise the kind of the more high-end complex cases.
Yeah.
So the data is certainly telling us a story.
And again, there's a safety net for those who slip through the net, because it happens.
Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie. Can I just say at this point, we've got the Cabinet Member for Social Services, Councillor Lacey, is online. Unfortunately, she can't join in, but she will be asking questions on dropping things into the chat, just for the purposes of people watching this online. Councillor Davis, you had a question.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions and a couple of observations. The format of this report is brilliant. I found it a lot more informative, and you weren't sort of looking different places. The way you've laid out the report for me is very welcome. Another thing I wanted to commend you on was the opening of the smart hubs and the dementia hubs. That sounds really well done on that. And the graffiti wall art for children, because I believe a lot of what children are thinking actually comes out in their artwork. One question I had, you've already answered about the mosaic systems, but how are we identifying and supporting young carers, and what sort of input does education have with it, the schools?
Okay, so the young carers are supported in a couple of places actually. So our prevention and early intervention team has a role to play in supporting young carers, but we also commission Bernardo's, Nat, don't we, to support our young carers as well. And the graffiti wall that you referred to was a project that our young carers, the Bernardo supported our young carers to do. So and it was a very powerful exercise, and certainly some very clear messages in there about the need for their voices to be heard. So that there's a very clear pathway for young carers to be supported by the local authority. I think one of the challenges that we have identified in this report is ensuring that we identify the young carers within our community, and absolutely our schools have a role to play in that, because the majority of our children, that is somewhere that they go day to day and see, you know, teachers day in, day out, and they can support us. And I know my head of prevention and early intervention isn't on the call today, but that is definitely something that is within her service plan, to be working with education colleagues to improve the way that we do identify young carers, because we do have support in place for them once they have been identified. An example of that is we've adopted a card that young carers can have on them, so they don't have to. So, for example, if they have to go and pick up prescriptions, or if they end up having to be late into school, instead of being reprimanded for that in a school, you know, this card will identify them as a young carer, and then give a little bit of leniency to the fact that they might be a bit late for school because of their caring duties. And then also when they do have to do, you know, sort of caring tasks, like go and pick up prescriptions, that they can see within, you know, you know, within the chemist environment that, yeah, okay, that's fine to hand you the prescription because of your role. So that's just a practical example of some of the support, and also giving young carers time just to come together as a group and to support one another and realise that they're not on their own. And that is a key role and part of the support that Barnardo's provide for our children.
Yeah, the brilliant idea with the card. It saves the children having to sort of rehash everything every time they need to do something. I think I read as well about champions within schools.
That is the work that Caroline Ryan Phillips, the head of prevention and inclusion, is taking forward with the schools within her service plan. Yeah,
that's another brilliant idea. And with regards to the 3 care homes that you've managed to enhance their looking to enhance their broadband with regards to that, I think, and again, is a brilliant idea because it helps the families be able to see their loved ones. It says you've got it in 3 at the moment. Is there any more plans for further homes?
So as a local authority, we only have three homes for adults. So with that broadband, you know, 100% of our local authority run homes have the broadband rolled out to them. Clearly, it wouldn't be the local authority's responsibility for a privately run home, you know, for us to get broadband in there. You know, that would be a matter for the private provider. But for the local authority run homes, you know, that's been a tremendous step forward.
Yeah, it has. Brilliant. Well done. Again, I'm a great advocate of case studies, which I found on each section in the report. There were a few case studies. That's brilliant to be able to see as well how people are reacting to different things. And like there was a few case studies with regards to that in the adult care homes. So brilliant. Well done. Thanks again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Yeah, I think we can echo the sentiments of Councillor Davis there with regards to the report. Much easier to read, much easier to follow, and yeah, it's aims that the whole way is a much better format. Councillor Cleverly.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with what Councillor Davis said and yourself about the format. It's excellently laid out, which is easy for us all to, you know, at a glance you can see how many social services referrals we've got, how many children in care. Absolutely brilliant. And the case studies as well, like Councillor Davis has said. And I had the pleasure of working in partnership last week with the youth service in a community litter pick. Absolutely brilliant. Cannot fault them at all. Without them, we would not have had as many young people as we did turn up. You know, they just rounded them all up. It was brilliant. And also with heading as well with us. Of course, they took all the rubbish away, which was even better. The only question I've got to ask is the housing for the care leavers. You know, what support have they got there? Do they have a support worker and to help them, you know, find flats or bed sits or whatever?
Yeah, so I'll hand over to Nat here because she'll know the detail of this about the support. The support we have, the support offer for our care leavers is extensive, but we'll, as you've just asked about housing, I'm sure Nat will give you a more sort of precise answer about that level of support for housing needs. Nat?
Yeah, so there's a lot of work going on at the moment in this space. So all of our care leavers have a social worker, so up until the age of 18, and then they also have a young person's advisor from the age of 18 to 25. So they're fully supported by the local authority should they choose to engage in that. We start planning for the transition for young people around the age of 15. So we've got an independent living panel, which is chaired by one of our service managers, to look at, ensuring that all of our children are equipped to kind of move transition into independence and have got all the appropriate skills to do so. We work very closely with our housing colleagues. We've just started to develop a 16+ housing framework. We've got a variety of different accommodation offers for our young people currently, and we're also waiting for another supported living accommodation to come on board. So we've been waiting for that for some time, but that should come on board, I think, the latter part of next year. We are also working in collaboration with housing on a wider scale. So we've just set up a housing and social services board. So that encompasses not just children's services, but adult services and prevention and inclusion. And that's really focusing on the transitional safeguarding model, which is that our children, their needs and their safeguarding needs don't end at 18. Actually, we need to continue supporting these young children beyond that. So we're working and collaborating together to develop services. So when our children reach the age of 18, they don't just, fall off the edge, the cliff edge. So yeah, absolutely, we're working together as a council really to support our young people, and that again is not just our care leavers, but any vulnerable child that requires an intervention post 18.
Excellent, thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Cleverly. Councillor Pym, do you have anything that you'd like to put forward?
Not at the moment, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Jenkins, do you have any questions to raise?
Thanks, Chair. No questions, just a great report, very positive, and thank you.
Okay. One thing I'd like to pick up on, Tanya, if it's okay, just looking at on page 25, you talk about the adaptations team case study, and as Councillor Dave said, it's great to see the case studies in because it's real life stuff. It makes it more real for us. Just looking at the sort of adaptations and grants, etc. How easy do we as a council make it for people to access the grants? And what sort of uptake do we have on those? Do we have any figures? Is there just a set budget, and once it's gone, it's gone?
Yeah, so there is what we call a disabled facilities grant that we have into the council each year, and it is a set amount of money, and we try and maximise that money, but there is a finite pot, so it is, when it's gone, it's gone. Sometimes we do have additional grant monies that come in from Welsh Government at the end of the year, which enables us to do more. So we always have a pipeline of, applications that we don't sort of wait for that. We have the applications all lined up. So if we do have those additional pots of money, we can act quickly to use them. So there's a very clear system in place, a very clear assessment. There's a very small team, but very knowledgeable team that supports people in making the applications and then explaining, because there's very tight criteria and guidance around what that grant can be used for, and sometimes the applications don't always meet the terms of the grant, but the team are very good at communicating if it hasn't been successful, then there might be other alternatives that individuals might be able to look at, but it absolutely is maximised, and we certainly could spend it. If Caroline, the head of services, she'd say if we had double the amount, we could certainly, spend that. But we do have a finite pot.
Okay, and with the application for that, then, is that only online or is that in person? Do we make it easy for all residents?
Yeah, I think there is. I'm not sure about the specifics, if I'm honest about it. But what I will say is, if it probably is an online application. However, knowing the way that the prevention and inclusion team works, if anybody had difficulty completing that online form, they would absolutely support that person to complete that application form.
So nobody is left out.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Great. Again, just for the benefit of anybody that's watching this online, members of the public, etc. Councillor Lacey can only be with us on the chat function today, but I'll just read out what Councillor Lacey has put into the chat. That I've recently presented to the House of Lords the great work that's been done in Newport since the care leave as a protected characteristic was passed. Newport are doing really well in this area compared to other local authorities who adopted the motion and did some great innovative work. Rowan Derrin also still supports us in this area. We met with the leader and Tanya, and again, he is fully on board and supportive of the great ideas coming forward for care leavers and housing support. I said that's just for the benefit of people watching online from the Cabinet Member for Social Services. Thank you for that. Okay, if we, Councillor Townsend, is there anything you'd like to add into the questions or any comments? Councillor Townsend, I'm not sure if you've got connection issues.
Sorry, I've just realised I've been talking to myself. No, I just reiterate what other people have said about the report. It was very edifying and straightforward, and I don't really have any questions, but thank you very much anyway. Thanks,
Councillor Townsend. Okay, well, I think we've exhausted our questions for you, Tanya. Thanks very much for coming on. Thank you, Natalie, for your input and your support throughout the year.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to go through what I caught outcomes,
yes, please.
Questions wise, it's just the request for the progress on the mosaic transfer. How do the committee want that progress to be updated sort of 6 monthly as significant updates occur? What works for the committee?
If the timeline is October 26th and we're already thick into it, I think, what are we, September now? I think if everyone agrees, I think we ought to have maybe an update in January, so that as we go into the year, we know we have an idea of what's happening with it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that work with everybody?
Yeah, sounds good to me, Chris.
Yeah.
Obviously, then you can still determine if you want another update,
yes,
or how you wish to proceed. That's not a problem. Outside of that, though, I've only got the committee we're content with the report to just go forward as it is to Cabinet. Is there anything anyone wants to add? Anything more specific you'd like to include?
No.
Well,
just going back over the questions. Yeah, I think that that transition update is the main one.
Yeah. Does the committee want me to highlight how pleased we were with the change in format? Because I know there is a big difference between last year and this year.
Yes, it was excellent. And can we say thank you to all the staff for all their hard work as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I could highlight that. It's not a problem.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Cleary.
Yeah, I totally agree with the way the format is. I much prefer that than the way it was before.
Yep.
I've put all that, and I'll make sure we pass that on to officers.
Okay. Just our reports, but
Yeah, just on to me again, sorry.
yeah.
Bit more of my voice. So if I sort of take the actions, the outcomes as one section really, I've had assurance from the head of adult services that her actions and outcomes are being worked on. She just needs one final check and they'll be able to work with the committee as soon as I can get them to you. I will chase the head of prevention and inclusion for her outstanding actions, but again, I'm sure that they'll be with committee soon. No change to our forward work programme at the minute. Our next meeting is the 30th of September and that'll be the Estin inspection outcomes report. Is there any questions? Is there any items the committee want to consider? Are we happy with our forward work programme? Oh, Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I'm looking at the forward work programme and I've noticed that 1 and 2 are ongoing, but there's nothing being said with regards to 3 and 4, whether they're complete, ongoing or outstanding.
The actions, Councillor Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. The only reason they haven't been marked as any kind of status yet is because they were made in the last meeting. So I haven't had a chance to say whether they were done yet or not. But after this, they would be marked as outstanding if they haven't been.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
No problem. Brilliant. If you're happy, I'm happy.
Oh, if there's nothing else, everybody, thanks very much for your time today, and see you all on the 30th.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Chris.
Chair.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Bye all.
Thanks, Councillor Lacey.